Neurodegenerative disorders, they don't announce themselves, do they? They sort of creep in.
Yeah, quietly rewiring things, memories, language, even who we feel we are.
For decades, doctors were working with clues that showed up really late.
Hmm.
Tests on paper, a lot of detective work.
It was like trying to see through a really thick fog. Diagnosis was tough.
But what if that fog is starting to lift? What if something else is, well, watching, listening for those quiet changes in the brain?
Hmm.
This is the deep dive, and today we're going to unpack exactly that. We're diving deep into how AI is mapping the diseased brain, really trying to move us from that state of, fog to focus.
That's the plan.
We'll explore, 25 years? An incredible journey of AI in this field, from the very first attempts to what's happening right now.
Absolutely. And our mission here for this deep dive is really to show you how AI isn't just some sci-fi idea anymore.
Right.
It's actually changing how we find and understand diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's.
On the ground today.
Yes. And we'll mix it up some hard numbers, definitely some clinical war stories. Those are always revealing. And yeah, maybe a bit of philosophical thinking too, because, when you have artificial minds studying human minds,
Things get interesting.
they really do. It gets pretty fascinating.
So with all the challenges in medicine, why the brain? Why is AI focused so intensely here? What makes this such a critical area?
Well, it really comes down to the sheer scale of the problem. I mean, Alzheimer's alone, you're talking over 55 million people globally.
And that's just one.
That's just one. The list keeps growing, right?
Right.
Parkinson's, Huntington's, ALS, FTD. And as populations get older, the silent war, it's just getting bigger.
Okay.
The core challenge, the real sticking point, has always been that diagnoses often land years. I mean, years. After the neurons have already started dying off.
Way too late.
Way too late. And that delay just cripples drug development. It's incredibly hard to treat something you can't see or that you only see when it's really advanced.
Right.
And that's exactly where AI stepped in. The aim was, and still is, to shorten those diagnostic delays, to filter out the noise in brain scans, spot those tiny biomarkers before symptoms really show up,
And even design new drugs.
and even design totally new molecules that might actually work.
But historically, those early efforts,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned they felt a bit like cargo cult science. Is that fair?
Aha! Yeah, that's a pretty good description for some of it. It was less AI and more like, let's just dump data in and hope.
Fingers crossed.
Pretty much. Just feeding raw scan data into basic networks, the accuracy, often, honestly, no better than flipping a coin.
Not great.
Not great at all. But then things really started to shift around, say, 2014. That's when convolutional networks got sophisticated enough to actually interpret radiology scans effectively.
Okay.
And then by 2017, you had the rise of GPU clusters, these superpowered computing setup.
Right, for heavy-duty calculations.
Exactly. Perfect for crunching huge data sets. And that allowed researchers to train these advanced 3D convolutional neural networks, or CNNs.
On thousands of scans.
Yeah, thousands of structural MRIs. These models are specifically designed for 3D data, like brain scans, and that was the explosion.
The turning point.
Absolutely. Suddenly AI and medical imaging was everywhere, every conference keynote, and it really hasn't stopped accelerating since.
So with this explosion in capability, where's AI actually making the biggest impact in neurology today?
Yeah.
We talked about maybe 4 main fronts.
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. 4 key areas where it's really changing things.
Can you give us a quick map?
Sure. So first, there's imaging analysis. The main goal here is automating measurements, things like brain shrinkage, what we call segmenting atrophy, or spotting tiny bleeds, microbleeds.
Using MRI, CT, PT scans.
Exactly. And the tools are those 3D CNNs we mentioned, and also newer things like vision transformers. We can dig into those later.
Okay, front number 1.
Second is biomarker discovery. This is about finding molecular clues, maybe from complex multi-omics, data genomics, proteomics.
All the biological blueprint.
Right. Or from spinal fluid, even blood tests. Here, models like autoencoders and graph networks are really useful for finding hidden patterns and connections in that complex data.
Got it. 2 down.
Third, clinical decision support. This is AI helping to suggest diagnoses or recommend next steps. It pulls data from electronic health records, maybe even wearables.
Like smartwatches.
Yeah, potentially. Using models like gradient boosting or even large language models, the LLMs everyone's talking about, to make sense of notes and data.
Okay.
And the last one.
Finally, patient monitoring. tracking how a disease is progressing over time using things like how someone walks, their speech patterns, even handwriting.
Using things like recurrent nets.
Recurrent neural networks,
Yeah.
which are good with sequences,
Hmm.
and also lightweight edge models that can run right on a device like a watch.
Interesting.
But the common thread, the really big picture across all four, AI is pushing decisions earlier, helping us act sooner in the patient's journey.
That's a great overview of the potential. But, code in a lab doesn't help patients. True. Code without adoption is just a GitHub repo gathering stars, as they say.
Exactly. So let's get practical.
Mhm.
What tools can doctors actually use right now? Are these things really being deployed?
Oh, yes. We've seen a really significant jump from research papers into actual clinical practice. There are quite a few examples now.
Like what?
Well, there's AIRAscore. It measures shrinkage in the hippocampus. That's a key memory area for early Alzheimer's detection. It's FDA 510K cleared, ready to go.
Okay, FDA cleared. That's important.
Very. Then you've got IcoBrain. It tracks overall brain volume changes, flags potential issues related to amyloid treatments. That one has both FDA clearance and the European CE mark.
So US and Europe.
Right. There's also NeuroQuant. It automatically creates reports on brain volume right from the MRI, sends them straight to the hospital's image system, the PICS, also FDA cleared.
Streamlining the workflow.
Definitely. And NeuroShield is using 3D CNNs for automated volume analysis across, I think, over 220 sites now. It's commercially available. And don't forget the ADOC NeuroSuite. That's a big one for emergency rooms, detecting brain bleeds, stroke, swelling. Multiple FDA clearances there, too.
It's kind of amazing. These tools are looking at incredibly complex scan data, giving risk scores, maybe color-coded, and plugging right into the radiologist's normal setup. It really does feel like the future is arriving.
And adoption is growing. It's not just because the tech is cool, though it is.
Right.
It's also being pushed by practical things, like new reimbursement codes coming online. Doctors can actually get paid for using these tools now.
Ah, the money trail. Always important.
Always. Plus, they're showing real results in reducing missed findings, missed lesions. That's a huge plus for patient safety.
Okay, so that brings us to the how. We know what they do, roughly. But how does an AI actually read a brain scan? What's happening inside that black box?
Yeah, good question. It often starts with something called segmentation, especially in MRI analysis.
Segmentation.
Think of the MRI scan as being made up of millions of tiny 3D cubes, right? Voxels.
Like 3D pixels.
Exactly. Segmentation is the AI's job of assigning each one of those voxels to a specific category. Is it gray matter, white matter, cerebrospinal fluid? Or is it something abnormal, like a tumor or an area that's shrinking, showing atrophy?
Okay, so it's mapping everything out.
Precisely. Now, older methods did this, but modern 3D CNNs, trained on huge amounts of labeled scan data, are just much faster and more consistent. They outperform humans in speed and repeatability.
And beyond CNNs, you mentioned vision transformers.
Right, vision transformers, or VITs, they're a newer type of architecture inspired by how language models work, actually.
How are they different for images?
Well, think of a standard CNN as maybe looking at the scan through a magnifying glass, focusing on local details. A VIT tries to look at the whole image at once, capturing both fine details and the bigger picture, what we call long-range dependencies.
Seeing the forest and the trees.
Kind of, yeah. This global view helps them make connections across different parts of the brain image more effectively. For example, one VIT model cut down false positives in detecting MS lesions by about 30%. That's significant.
Huge.
And that same kind of architecture, when applied to Alzheimer's data, has pushed prediction accuracy for who might develop the disease early well above 90% in some studies.
Okay, impressive results. But that leads straight back to the trust issue. Why trust a black box? How do doctors get comfortable if they don't know why the AI flagged something?
That is the crucial question, and there's a whole field working on it called explainable AI, or XAI.
XAI.
Exactly. XAI tools aim to make the AI's decision-making process more transparent. They generate things like saliency maps.
What are those?
They're basically heat maps overlaid on the original scan, showing which specific pixels or voxels the AI paid most attention to when it made its decision.
So you can literally see what it looked at.
Right. Or they might provide counterfactual examples showing you, look, if this tiny part of the scan had been slightly different, the AI's prediction would have changed. It gives clinicians a better feel for the AI's logic.
Are they perfect?
Oh, definitely not perfect yet. But they offer way more insight than just getting a score spit out with no explanation. It's about building that bridge of trust.
So we've got the imaging side, sort of seeing the smoke of the disease in the brain structure.
Uh-huh.
But you also mentioned AI moving deeper, right? Down to the molecular level, finding the fire.
Absolutely. That's a huge frontier. Labs are now feeding incredibly complex multi-omics data.
Genomics, proteomics, all that stuff.
Exactly. All the biological blueprint data from cells, they feed this into graph neural networks.
Okay, what do those do?
Graph nets are really good at finding hidden connections and relationships within super complex data sets, like figuring out how different proteins interact in a disease pathway. This helps researchers hunt for new drug targets much more effectively.
Any examples of that working?
Yeah, there's a startup called In Silico Medicine. They've used AI drug discovery platforms to significantly speed up finding and validating targets. They actually got a small molecule inhibitor drug for ALS into phase I clinical trials recently, much faster than traditional methods.
Wow, from computer model to clinical trial.
It's happening. And another fascinating area is using generative diffusion models.
Generative,
Yeah,
like the AI art generators.
sort of, yeah. But instead of generating images, these models are like incredibly creative digital chemists that work 24/7. They learn the rules of chemistry and protein structures.
And then invent new molecules.
Exactly. They can design brand new candidate drug compounds that are predicted to perfectly fit or snap into the complex shapes of disease-related proteins, especially those misfolded ones you see in neurodegeneration.
So better drug candidates, faster.
That's the goal. It significantly improves the hit-to-lead ratio in drug discovery, meaning more promising starting points for new medicines, which ultimately saves time and money.
This all seems to circle back to that urgent need for early diagnosis. You keep emphasizing that.
Because it's critical. The reality is stark.
Yeah.
Catch neuronal death early, and you have a chance to intervene meaningfully. Miss that window.
And you're just managing symptoms for years.
Exactly. Which is a much tougher and often less effective situation for everyone involved.
So how does AI help specifically with early diagnosis? What can it pick up?
It excels at spotting incredibly subtle patterns, things human senses might easily miss, like a barely perceptible slowing in a finger tap test.
Things you wouldn't notice.
Probably not in a routine check.
Yeah.
Or a tiny change in handwriting size micrographia, a Parkinson's clue, or even a half-second delay in finding the right word during conversation.
Are there actual tools doing this?
Yes. For example, there are smartphone apps now using acoustic modeling, analyzing the sound of your voice to flag hypophonia.
Which is?
A quietness or reduced volume in the voice is one of the earliest vocal signs of Parkinson's. The app can pick up changes over time.
It's from voice recordings,
It's from voice recordings. And wearables are huge here, too.
like fitness trackers.
Yeah, or smartwatches. Accelerometers inside them can detect patterns consistent with REM sleep behavior disorder.
Why is that important?
Because REM sleep behavior disorder, where people physically act out their dreams, is a known strong predictor for developing certain neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's years down the line.
So the watch flags a sleep issue that predicts a brain issue.
Potentially, yes. We're also seeing smartwatches used to monitor gait, how someone walks. Tiny changes in stride variability picked up by the watch sensors. That data can be streamed, often encrypted, to cloud-based AI models. LSTMs are good for this sequence data. If the variability crosses a certain threshold,
An alert goes out.
an alert could ping a neurologist's dashboard. The idea is cheap sensors plus clever models might catch things much earlier than a yearly clinic visit.
That's a pretty bold claim, potentially outperforming clinic visits. Are there situations where this remote monitoring might, fall short? Or where that human touch is still absolutely essential?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point. These tools are fantastic for detecting subtle changes over time, for flagging potential issues,
But not diagnosing.
not replacing diagnosis. They aren't meant to substitute for the complex reasoning and nuanced assessment a neurologist brings, especially with tricky or unusual cases.
Right.
And you can't replace human empathy.
Right.
Or interpreting things a patient tells you that don't show up in sensor data. These are assistive tools.
Augmenting the doctor, not replacing them.
Exactly. Their power lies in getting potential problems flagged earlier so that clinical attention can be more focused and timely. They enhance the doctor-patient relationship, ideally.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, decision support. Many doctors, if they hear clinical decision support, they might roll their eyes.
Yes. I think of those annoying pop-up alerts.
The clunky checklist things that just interrupt workflow. Click dismiss.
Click dismiss, exactly. Alert fatigue is real. But the new wave of AI-driven decision support is aiming to be very different, much more integrated, much less annoying.
How so?
The idea is to embed it directly into the existing workflow, almost invisibly. Imagine a patient comes in with some mild memory concerns.
Okay.
Their electronic health record system in the background quietly pulls together their lab results, any past brain scans, family history, maybe even coded socioeconomic factors.
All the relevant data points.
All of them. The AI model then analyzes this integrated picture and might assign, say, a risk percentile for that patient converting to Alzheimer's within the next 5 years.
And then what? A pop-up.
Maybe not even a pop-up. It could be a subtle flag in the patient chart or a suggestion. Consider amyloid PE referral based on risk profile. The key is the neurologist is still absolutely in charge.
It's a nudge, not a command.
Exactly, an evidence-backed nudge. It can boost diagnostic confidence, especially in those borderline cases, and help ensure critical possibilities aren't missed.
But that explainability you mentioned earlier must be vital here, too. If a doctor gets that nudge, they need to know why.
Absolutely critical for trust and actual use. And models like, say, XGBoost, another type of machine learning model, are pretty good at this. They can surface the specific factors that drove the risk score.
So it might say,
It might highlight risk score elevated primarily due to hippocampal volume below 5th percentile, presence of APOE4 gene variant, and patient-reported sleep disturbances.
okay. Specifics.
Yes. And that allows the conversation with the patient to become much more concrete. Instead of vague worries, you can say, okay, these are the specific factors we're seeing, and here's how we can monitor them or what we can do about them. It leads to more targeted action.
Okay, let's make this even more real. Can you share some stories from the field? Where has this actually worked, or maybe where did it stumble? The field notes, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. These stories really illustrate the impact. Let's call case one the phantom lesion.
Okay.
A 49-year-old software architect, sharp guy, starts having some weird memory lapses, gets a standard structural MRI scan.
Nice.
Looks totally normal, radiologist report. Unremarkable.
But he's still having issues.
Exactly. But the hospital was piloting an AI tool that analyzes diffusion tensor imaging, a type of MRI that looks at water molecule movement to map brain connections.
And the AI saw something.
The AI flagged subtle microstructural disruption, basically problems in the wiring near the entorhinal cortex. That's a key area hit very early in Alzheimer's.
Even though the standard scan was clear.
Even though the standard scan was clear, based on the AI flag, they did a follow-up spinal tap.
And found.
Elevated phosphorylated tau, a clear biomarker for Alzheimer's pathology. Result. He started therapy 3 years earlier than he likely would have otherwise.
Wow. The AI turned subtle data into years of lead time.
Exactly. Pixels into time. Okay, case two. The GP and the watch.
Sounds intriguing.
This was a general practitioner in a rural area, limited access to specialists. She started a small program using low-cost wearables, basically smartwatches, for her older patients.
Monitoring what?
Primarily gait walking patterns. Over about 9 months, the system's algorithm flagged 5 patients with specific gait irregularities. Things like reduced arm swing, increased variability, subtle signs, suggestive of very early or prodromal Parkinson's. She referred them to Neurology. The neurologist confirmed the algorithm's suspicion in all 5 cases. They started treatment plans before the classic tremor even showed up.
Incredible. Especially in a rural setting.
Yeah, saved those patients countless dopamine neurons, probably a lot of travel, a lot of time.
But it's not all smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned misfires.
Oh yeah, reality check time. Here's one. A big hospital deployed a third-party AI model designed to detect seizures from EEG readings in the ICU.
Sounds useful.
Should have been. But the rate of false positives went through the roof. Constant alarms.
Why?
Turns out, the electrical noise from standard IV pumps in the ICU environment was confusing the algorithm. It hadn't been trained sufficiently on real-world noisy ICU data.
So the nurses.
Understandably, started ignoring the alarms. Alarm fatigue deluxe. An audit showed the vendor basically trained it on clean data, not the messy reality of an ICU.
A lesson.
Context is everything. Pilot these things in the actual environment they'll be used in, not just a sanitized lab setting.
Right. Test it where it lives.
Yeah.
Any other twists? You mentioned a pivot story.
Yes. This one's about unexpected discoveries. A memory clinic was collecting handwriting samples using digital tablets.
For Parkinson's, micrographia.
That was the original plan, yes. Screen for the small handwriting associated with Parkinson's. But they had a curious data scientist on the team.
Oh? Or,
She started analyzing the data differently and noticed that the variability in letter spacing, how consistently people space their letters,
Yeah.
that actually correlated really strongly with mild cognitive impairment, MCI, which is often a precursor to Alzheimer's.
Not Parkinson's, but Alzheimer's.
Exactly, so they completely pivoted the project, focused on using handwriting analysis for early Alzheimer's screening instead. Published papers, even filed a patent on the method.
Wow. Serendipity loves a large data set indeed.
It really does. Sometimes the data tells you things you weren't even looking for.
Okay, so looking ahead now, we've seen current tools, successes, pitfalls. What's next? What's on the cutting edge for AI in brain health?
The pace is definitely not slowing down. One huge area is large multimodal models,
Multimodal, meaning
meaning models that can understand and reason across different types of data simultaneously. Think of something like GPT-4, but trained not just on text and images, but also on PET scans, MRI data, voice recordings, genomic sequences, clinical notes, all at once.
this sees the whole picture.
Exactly. Early versions are already showing they can answer really complex questions like find patients in our database who have Alzheimer's biomarkers, but whose hippocampal volume is still normal, yet their brain ventricles are expanding faster than average.
That's incredibly specific.
Right. It's about synthesizing insights across all the available data, not just looking at one scan type in isolation.
What else is coming?
Self-supervised learning on massive image archives. Hospitals have decades worth of DICOM images, the standard medical image format.
Mostly unlabeled, right?
Mostly unlabeled, exactly. Self-supervised learning techniques can learn meaningful patterns and representations from this huge pile of unlabeled data without needing doctors to manually annotate everything first.
Which saves a ton of time and effort.
A massive amount. It's a way to unlock the hidden knowledge in those archives, especially for neurodegenerative diseases where good labeled data is often scarce.
And you mentioned digital twins. That sounds very sci-fi.
It does, but it's a serious area of research. The idea is to create a highly detailed, personalized computer simulation of an individual patient's brain and body.
A virtual copy.
Essentially, yes, based on their genetics, imaging, lifestyle data, everything. The goal is to use this digital twin to predict how their specific disease might progress over time.
And test interventions.
And simulate how they might respond to different treatments before actually giving them. What if we tried drug A? What if we changed lifestyle factor B? If these models become accurate enough,
It could completely change how we personalize medicine.
revolutionize it, especially for early diagnosis and choosing the right intervention pathway from the start.
One more.
Yeah, edge inference on neurowearables. This is about making the AI run directly on the device, like your smartwatch.
Not sending data to the cloud.
Minimizing that, yes. New chips, like Apple's Neural Engine or similar ones in other devices, are powerful enough now to run surprisingly complex AI models right there on your wrist.
What's the benefit?
Privacy is a big one. Your sensitive health data stays local, encrypted on the device, and you could get real-time, continuous risk scores or monitoring maybe for dementia risk or seizure prediction without constant cloud communication.
Fascinating. But these amazing possibilities also bring challenges, right?
Yep.
We have to talk about the hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. Big hurdles.
Yeah.
Top of the list is probably bias in the training data. Well, many of the large data sets used to train these AI models come predominantly from major academic hospitals in Western countries.
So they mostly represent that population.
Exactly. Which means the AI might not perform as well or could even make errors when applied to people from different demographic groups, ethnicities, or geographic locations. For example, a model trained primarily on scans from white urban populations might misinterpret scans from, say, rural Black patients who might have different patterns of coexisting conditions or even slight anatomical variations.
That's a serious problem for equity. What are the solutions?
It requires active effort. Things like federated learning, where the model trains on local data at different hospitals without the raw data ever leaving those sites. Only anonymized model updates are shared.
So data stays local, protecting privacy and potentially including more diverse data sets.
Right. Also, mandating rigorous bias audits before any AI tool is deployed widely. We need to specifically test performance across different subgroups and consciously collecting more diverse and representative data sets from the start.
What about privacy in general? We're talking about Huge amounts of very sensitive brain scan data.
Huge concern. Moving petabytes of this data to cloud platforms for training requires incredibly robust security. Techniques like confidential computing enclaves, which shield data even while it's being processed in the cloud, are helping. Federated learning helps here too.
And regulations, are government stepping in?
They are. You have frameworks like the FDA's rules for software as a medical device, SAMD, in the US, and the EU's AI Act. These are starting to demand more transparency, risk documentation, and post-market surveillance for medical AI.
So there's oversight building.
Yes, but it's complex and evolving. The core message here is really about trust. We have to design for trust from the beginning, be transparent, address bias, protect privacy, meet regulatory standards. If we don't,
People won't accept it.
exactly. Fear and apprehension will win out, and even the best AI tools will just sit on the shelf. We either build trust intentionally, or we risk the whole field stalling.
So beyond the tech itself, how do things like policy and, frankly, money push these tools out into the real world?
They are absolutely key drivers. Policy, especially reimbursement policy, is huge.
You mentioned billing codes earlier.
Yes, that 2024 decision by CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in the U.S., to approve new CPT codes for cognitive assessment software, that was a game changer.
Oh, so.
Suddenly, hospitals and clinics could get paid for using these AI tools as part of patient assessment. It instantly shifted AI from being an interesting research pilot to something with a clear financial pathway for adoption.
Money talks.
It does. And private insurance companies quickly followed suit. We're seeing similar trends in Europe, too. Germany's integrating AI for dementia screening support. France is tying some reimbursement to vendors publishing performance data openly.
That forces transparency.
It does. And it feeds into what some call a virtuous loop. Good reimbursement drives usage. Usage generates more real-world data and evidence. That evidence satisfies regulators and builds clinician trust. Better trust leads to more usage, and so on.
Okay, that makes sense for adoption. But what about places that don't have huge budgets for the latest commercial AI suites? Are they left out?
That's a valid concern, but thankfully, no, not necessarily. And this is where the open source movement is incredibly important.
Open source software.
Exactly. There are powerful free open source frameworks available now. Things like MONAI, which is specifically for medical imaging AI, FreeSurfer for analyzing brain structure, DeepChem for working with molecular data in drug discovery.
So anyone can use these.
Pretty much anyone with the technical skills. It really democratizes access. A smaller hospital, a university research lab, even a resident working on a project, they can download these tools and start experimenting or building solutions without a massive upfront cost.
Any examples of that making a difference?
Absolutely. I heard about a community hospital in Brazil. They didn't have a budget for a commercial neuro-oncology AI package, but they used the open source MONAI framework, trained a segmentation model on about 400 of their own local patient MRI scans, and ended up building a tool that successfully helped them detect low-grade gliomas brain tumors that had been missed on the initial radiological reads.
Wow. Build in-house using open tools.
Exactly. No big vendor contract needed. It shows the power of open source in leveling the playing field.
So if a hospital is looking to start implementing AI, maybe starting small, is there a kind of practical playbook they could follow?
Yeah, based on what we've seen work, there are some key steps, a sort of pragmatic approach.
Lay it out for us.
Okay, first, audit your data. Before you even think about AI, know what data you have, where it lives, what format it's in. Is it clean, accessible? You need to map your imaging systems, your electronic health records, any other feeds. Garbage in, garbage out still applies.
Foundational step. What's next?
Second, pick a single, clear use case. Don't try to boil the ocean. Focus on one specific clinical problem where AI could help. Maybe it's speeding up stroke detection in the ER or quantifying hippocampal volume for memory clinic patients. Define success clearly. What metric needs to improve?
Focus is key, then.
Third, choose build versus buy. Do you license a commercial tool that comes with validation, support, and regulatory clearance? Or do you use open source tools and build something more customized yourself? Consider the costs, the internal expertise needed, long-term maintenance. There's no single right answer.
Okay, makes sense.
Fourth, pilot quietly. Before you fully roll it out and change workflows, run the AI model in the background in silent mode for maybe a month. Compare its outputs to what your clinicians are currently doing. Measure its accuracy, false positives, false negatives, impact on turnaround time in your specific setting.
Test drive it first.
Exactly. De-risk it. Fifth, Train the staff, and not just the doctors and radiologists who will directly use the output. Train the IT team who has to support it, maybe even the billing department who needs to code for it. Widespread understanding is crucial for adoption. A tool fails if only the innovation team gets it.
Good point. People side is key. And finally,
Monitor and iterate. This isn't like installing standard software and forgetting about it. AI models can drift in performance over time as patient populations or imaging scanners change. You need to continuously monitor performance, log any issues, recalibrate the models periodically, have regular reviews. Think of AI in healthcare as a living system,